XRP is a strategic reserve asset. A great question has been posed. The market's melting down because of tensions in the Middle East and actions on top of that. BTC is a safe haven? Well, what about gold? We'll talk price action along with
I say lots of naughty things, so here's your warning.
discount, aisle 2. Everything is on sale. We know the reason why. We're going to talk about the rebounds and more. But before we get into that, especially about a good question in terms of XRP as a strategic reserve, your comments come first. Sparkwater channel member, thank you for the support, says, looks like more than ever bots are in control. And I'm hating it every day. How does everything fall at once? Yeah, when we had the Israel-Iran action start kicking off, the entire heat map all at once plummeted. Yeah, because bots are ruling the roost, baby. You know the deal. Now, I know things are in the red right now with some things really bleeding out heavier than others, but there's some optimism in the market. Anna Belugo, and gotta be honest with you, I share the optimism here, dropping support on the channel, thank you, says XRP performed well even without the regulatory clarity when Brad publicly gave the settlement news with the SEC. However, the price dropped significantly after the misfiling, though it rebounded regularly well. Notably, XRP has demonstrated strong resilience, maintaining its position around the $2 mark. Remember, we've got the Taurus final stuff, you've got the Genius Act, you've got ISO, you've also got ETF approvals, you've got the rate cuts coming. So we've got a lot of bullish things coming up here, most likely happening in the fourth quarter. We just got to deal with the poop sandwiches that we've got now. And yeah, lots of red up on the screen. Some things bleeding off worse than the others, I'll be honest with you. Seeing the meme, a lot of risk assets bleeding off heavily. And why? Well, it's because of the whole Israel-Iran thing. Yeah, as soon as that happened last night, crypto's bled off. But, I've got hope for you. If the White Sox can trade Andrew Vaughn, and I'm putting my hat on, why? Because El Pope had his White Sox hat on, so I'm putting mine on. If the Sox can trade Andrew Vaughn and get rid of that piece of shit, then the crypto market has hope as well. Gold versus Bitcoin, we know which is the real safe haven. The airstrike sent oil spiking, which jolted inflation expectations and yanked rates higher, creating a chain reaction across risk assets, said Ben Kirkland, CEO of Crypto Rash Forum, DYOR. Crypto in particular got hit because it's highly sensitive to liquidity and macro volatility. When oil rips and yield rides, the asset for appetite or leverage shrinks. Alongside gold, other traditional safe havens such as the US dollar and government bonds also saw an increased interest, but gold's proven track record in crisis situations makes it a perfect choice for investors. Okay, gold. Look at the chart of gold. It is absolutely roaring. There's the 1 year chart. There's the 5 year chart of gold. Basically, the gold play right now is telling you that a bunch of investors out there think that global turmoil is here to frickin' stay. And in fact, if you go to the 6 month chart, homegirl is really roaring. And if you go to what we've dealt with here over the last several days, she is a really moving. So, as geopolitical tensions rise, as uncertainty rises, as inflation rises, gold will rise. That 5 year chart is absolutely bonkers, with a massive amount of run up happening since when, everyone? Since November of 2024. That's right, gold going from right around $2,600 to $3,452 right now. Now, Bitcoin, look at the chart over the last 7 days. See what I'm saying? As soon as we get the Israel-Iran action, boom, Bitcoin drops. So even though Bitcoin is considered the safe haven aspect among the cryptos, it is still more susceptible to risk than you would see compared to gold. Now, let's swing it over into the riskier stuff, right? XRP is riskier, meme is riskier than that, and you get my point, okay? But there was a really good question posed, and I want to hear this from you. Now, I'm not the biggest Grant Cardone fan, or Gary Cardone, my bad on that. I'm not the biggest Gary Cardone fan, but listen to this. Gary Cardone asked a really good question. Cardone weighed in on the conversation by turning the spotlight on Ripple. He questioned why Ripple has not transitioned to a company with an XRP reserve strategy, especially if the token is expected to appreciate dramatically and replace Swift with global payments. Basically what he's saying is, if Brad is out here and if David are out here, and if they're both saying, oh, XRP, 14% of Swift market cap globally, if XRP is going to rocket, if XRP can't be cheap in order for things to move, if all these players are calling for $10,000 XRP, 589. If XRP is going to replace, if all this stuff, right? If XRP is so juicy, how come Ripple isn't creating an XRP strategy? They're just dumping it on the market, right? Why aren't they keeping it? So what Gary Cardone says, and I want to hear from you. What are your thoughts? This is hilarious. This reminds me of the best question I've ever heard asked about the XRP Ripple do it. Why doesn't Ripple move to an XRP reserve strategy company? If XRP is going to go to some crazy high price and take over the Swiss system, it seems like a trade of the century if XRP has value and Ripple doesn't. Well, why wouldn't then Ripple just keep hoarding XRP? Let me know down below. How come more players aren't getting into XRP as a strategic reserve asset if XRP is touted to be the next best thing out there since sliced bread? I want to hear from you. Remember my job. Bring the news, good, bad, happy, or sad. Right now, we're sitting at 26 out of 100 with the altcoins. I'm assuming we're going to have some nasty outflows with the ETFs institutionally. We're going to see that pop up on the screen probably tomorrow. We have, though, for the majority of time seen the inflow, so I'm not too worried overall. We've seen this in the crypto markets every so often. We get the outflows based on bad news. XRP price, look, looks just like the Bitcoin chart that I showed you. See this? This is XRP. That's BTC. XRP, BTC. Boy, do they look the same, don't they? XRP's volume, 4.69 billion, up 81%. A lot of people freaking out, selling off. A lot of people jumping in, too. Buying the dipperoni. Exchanges are making lots of money on that action. Going to the candlestickeronis, we're going to go to the 15-minute and see exactly what she says. Well, ever since we had that nasty dip, we've gotten back up. But this is what I talked about earlier this morning. We're seeing a lot of resistance here at that 216, 217 mark. The market isn't ready to let us get higher than that. We've felt resistance now 1, 2, 3 different times since we've had the Israel-Iran announcements. No, this is not political. No, it's not picking sides, which is right or wrong. It's just the effect it has on the crypto market. And the most frustrating thing about this, if we zoom out, what did we get right here? The crypto market pulled back on Elon and Trump action. We did rebound a little bit, but then we sold off yet again. So the crypto markets are very susceptible, very volatile to what everyone, geopolitical tensions, inflation data, and so forth. And you're seeing it pan out today as the majority of the crypto market is deep, deep, deep in the red. Some assets are slightly in the red, but the majority is bleeding deep in the red. I got my Darth Vader background on in the red, but remember, if the White Sox can trade Andrew Vaughn, anything is possible. So if Brad and David are saying all the time that, XRP is going to replace 14% of Swiss volume, if it's going to go big into price and all that kind of stuff, how come they're dumping more of it on the market rather than hodling it as a reserve asset? I want to hear from you. How come Jed McCaleb dumped XRP? Remember, he did it with the taco stand. How come a lot of players are adopting BTC versus XRP? We saw Trident the other day, just yesterday, saying, we want to get into XRP as a reserve. All of a sudden, their stock was sold off by 50% almost on that news announcement. Granted, it reclimbed some of its way back to like 34% down, but still, companies out there are getting penalized for getting into crypto. But why isn't Ripple then being an XRP reserve company? Right? It begs you to ask that question. If XRP is going to be super juicy price-wise, then why not stack more of it rather than add it to the circulating supply? Why sell it off to your primary institutions out there and primary investors if it's going to be worth so much more here in the future? Let me know what your thoughts are down below. And also, are we going to get a break this weekend, or are tensions going to escalate? Is Iran going to retaliate and bring the crypto markets down even further? Let's hope not. But if you got dry powder ready, remember, what does it do? It takes the red on the screen and turns it into what? Potential green on the screen, because then you could take that red, turn it into green, which is the profit zone, everyone. And remember, if the White Sox can get rid of Andrew Vaughn, anything is possible. Choo-choo what? Choo-choo biz nachos.